pass the,
No, I can.
right,
I can.
because I got the old one, the MOU.
Thank you for running this, Carla.
Is your daughter end up playing with it or not? Hey, hey. I should have asked you what the meeting was.
Oh, no, you went up to the boardroom. I'm sorry. I guess I asked everybody on the board about moving the specials to this room going forward, and I did not inform you. I apologize.
Right.
Yeah, sure did.
Dad, make sure you call me before 6.
Oh,
Noise anytime.
We're coordinating today.
sir.
Time to wake up.
Okay, those shoes are super cute. Thank you. I hate our department always cry every day, so I feel like I have to get crazy glasses and crazy shoes.
I wear these scrubs all day, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone looks the same.
Ryan, did you run up to that DOT 57 meeting?
No, I didn't have a chance to. Was that Thursday?
I was in there. It was packed.
Yeah, the one we had last year was really packed, and we had it in the high school forum up there when a Mantorville citizen took over the show. So,
I heard.
yeah, it was awkward.
I heard.
People have a lot of questions, which is fair.
Not too many with the one up here.
No, that
The
one's,
one, the two downtown people. have
yeah,
still-
the proximity of the two is a concern for people, losing the stoplight and the safety of walking. All those things are,
The tracks.
they're very understandable. But we definitely need one here by 16th. It'll be a really nice change with Quick Trip there, and
Do you run into roundabouts and stuff where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic or crossing?
This will be one of the highest.
I feel like it will be, yeah.
we'll have
I'm not
bump.
used to too many roundabouts and stuff that have a lot of pedestrian traffic, so I'm interested to see how that works.
I think they're having bump outs as well. From the pictures I've seen, down on Main we'll have bump outs to make it a little
Yes, it
safer,
is.
less of a walk for people. It'll move cars away from both turning on Main to Mantorville, so they'll have more room to see. It should help.
I smell like a dog inside.
Interesting to see how that works out. You know, there's never been a reason for this crossing the road, right?
Depends on the
They're completely parallel.
It's like my dog, they're all like
With that.
The dog wants them to run down tomorrow.
I don't know.
And they'll be crossing it to go to Quick Trip a lot to get food.
I was talking to Sarah Crawford the other day, and she goes, I realize this will
One
affect
other thing.
how close
the
some
MOU.
people are to school now that they can walk.
And then a couple of them need to.
That'll be really nice to have it all the way down.
Might be one less route.
You guys did a new software. Yesterday, I mean, HR software that your wife's involved with. How's that thing going?
One didn't go because we didn't have it.
Okay, I mean, it's not a small stuff. They were smart, they opened it up on Saturday, so that you get some people without, people that are like, actually working like 16 hour days for, yeah, it's a long time. But before we get started, I will make a motion before the action items. Take a recess here. People can make that presentation. There was concern about, not having time to do that. For the MOU, the contract for the business. Superintendent.
Those are much better. I know. I was like, I need blue glasses.
You got some new ones?
Oh, they're a little few months old now, but you know, every once in a while I get spice up.
Kicked up me out of the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Gotta be loud, it's fun. Yeah. It's like a trend right now though too, there's people wearing glasses that don't wear glasses. Sit down, what are you doing?
Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so we will call the special school board meeting, Independent School District 204, Kasson-Mantorville to order. We do have a quorum here, everybody is able to attend tonight. We'll stand for the
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved. Thank you, Mark, and second.
Second.
Thank you, Angie. Any discussion on the agenda?
Yes. Hold on, I just want to make sure I have. I would like to remove, policy 610 field trips from tonight's agenda, so that we can bring it back to the policy committee. There's been some questions that were brought up. So I make a motion to remove 610 field trips from tonight's agenda, so we can bring it back to the policy committee for further discussion.
I think we have to redo the motion. So the motion would be,
Sorry.
we have
I
to
just
divide, we need to vote this one down and vote.
Okay, sorry, that's my fault. I wasn't
No.
fully listening.
So, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye. Those opposed, say aye, the same sign.
Aye.
So now,
All right, I, please remove from tonight's agenda, policy 610 field trips, so that we can bring it back to the policy committee for further discussion.
thank you. We have that motion, so we have a second.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
What was the concern from people you talked to about that policy?
About field trips, we had talked about that dollar amount, but we do have, there's just some confusion around the language as it's worded on whether or not, or why we then charge people or students money for field trips.
And where was that, 610?
610, it talks about,
I was trying to
I
look
need
for
to
that.
pull it up, sorry. I don't have everything right in front of me. Under instructional trips, fees may not be assessed against students to defray direct costs of instructional trips.
Was that the?
That was the question.
That's-
And so that's the language that we'd like to just review and make sure that that is as clear as possible.
2A.
2A, yes.
Instructional trips as opposed to.
And I understand that there are ways, there are scholarships available for those. However, I think we need to just really make sure that that word invest captures what the intent is.
Good idea.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're on consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Amy, in a second.
Second.
Thank you, Brandon. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Just the one item, which is the regular school board meeting minutes from last.
Before you approve that, Carlin should probably eliminate 610 field trips from the agenda. Is that what you do, Carlin?
Well, actually, since you asked,
We checked.
the motion that Amy wants to make is actually when we're on the policy items to approve all except for 610, rather than amend the agenda, is my
Doesn't
understanding.
it make sense to remove it before we get to it?
Because you're making a motion and a second to approve these, so if you motion to approve all except for one, then that one gets struck. Does that make sense?
But a motion to just remove it from the agenda is not the best way to do that.
No,
Okay.
because it changes the agenda, which has been posted for 3 days. Does that make sense? So if we want to go back to the original motion to approve the agenda by Mark and seconded by Amy, rather, and then just strike the opposing the approval, that's where I think that should be right.
I can do that, yeah,
The
I can do that.
610.
I'll reach out for clarification as to why that, but thank you. Yeah, that, we can do it that way.
We heard Terry repeatedly say, try not to amend the agenda.
On
if you
special
can
meetings.
help it.
On
That's
special.
why we're in public.
Okay, yep, no, that's fair.
Okay. So. We need a, how do we do this? We
You
Just
have
to-
to amend the
amend the motion.
So I move to amend the motion made by me previously.
So we have a motion on the floor to,
Strike 610.
Strike the motion previously made by myself, Amy Olson.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Angie. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of resetting the agenda to its original language, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. So we are on to the regular agenda. So thank you. So now we will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve this.
Thank you, Brandon. Just a second.
I can second.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And we're on to action items. So on the action items, I did have, board members reach out and with concerns about being able to get through the, MOU for the healthcare, because that is now, an updated version. The business manager contract, Superintendent Patuska's contract. So I would make a motion at this time that we recess for 30 minutes to give people time to read through that on their own, so that we can have thorough and complete conversation around those 3 items tonight. So that's my motion.
I have a question. When was the MOU added to the agenda?
So I think,
Today,
Okay.
so we approved, so going back, I'm not sure, we approved that MOU to be presented. Thinking about it, I'm not sure that we approved that MOU, the board actually officially approved that. I don't know if it just needs a signature on it, and so just to be complete on that, and make sure that we have covered all of our bases, thought it was best to bring that back to the board and have the whole board approve that.
No, it definitely makes sense. I just didn't.
I'll
The
second the motion.
yeah, the board would have the ability to strike down that healthcare relief MOU if they so desired, but, and then it would be placed or table it until the next meeting if they we're not comfortable with passing that to them.
So we voted on it the last
You
meeting.
voted to offer it to.
Okay, and now we're voting just
Yeah,
to,
because they had.
They've got to both
they
sign
didn't know
now,
if
they brought
would
it back.
accept it,
gotcha.
and they now accepted it and signed it, and so now, thought, how does that just bring it back to the entire board?
So there's no changes on it though?
No, it just goes from, first page, I think, came off, the draft stuff came off.
Right.
And that,
The first page is still in that document, and Carlin has not taken that off. But if you go to the MOU actually begins on page 2.
Yep.
So the first page is not part of the MOU, as we discussed with KMM here recently.
so when we looked at it, if you remember, that first page was on there with all those things.
Yep.
Is that it, Carmen, or can you make it smaller? Or is there any more to fit on there or no? Oh yeah, just the dates, okay. Cool.
So I made a motion to recess to look at these.
Angie seconded.
You second, so we're in discussion. And if people, 30 minutes isn't appropriate time, or if it's too much or too little, let me know, but, I thought
Let's
we
do
started 30
15,
minutes.
is that okay with everyone?
15 is fine.
Just to move it along, yeah.
Okay, so, I made a motion second. Let's vote on it, and then we can vote on 15.
Okay.
Fair enough? Okay. So we have a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor of recessing for 30 minutes, say aye.
Aye. Oh, I mean, not aye, sorry, go again.
So for 30 minutes, so we have 2 ayes for 30 minutes. So
Keep it, yeah, that's fine.
so opposed, same sign. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the motion denied. So I will make a motion to recess for 15 minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Angie. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to recess for 15 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
We are in recess for 15 minutes. If you need to go somewhere else or review these, feel free. And then we will have a discussion. Yeah, and Harlan did redline these for us, so.
Because I said it was actually low, wasn't it? so we're just kind of was all out on here.
I just looked it up.
Okay, it is 6:25. We will reconvene on the action items. And the first action item is approval of the healthcare relief MOU. I have the actual copy in front of me, signed by Education Minnesota. So I will first ask, do we have a motion to approve the healthcare relief MOU?
So moved to approve.
Thanks, Brandon, and a second.
I moved a second.
Thanks, Kate. Okay, now I'll entertain discussion on that, we'll have discussion on the MOU, if there is any after reading it. Again, the stated before, the first page came off from that draft, and this is the actual MOU in the proper state that you have in front of you. Any questions on that MOU?
Dates and set up to start negotiation. Okay, wonderful. I know there are a lot listed.
Yep. Okay, so hearing nothing else, all those in favor of approval of the healthcare relief MOU, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, the motion carries. And sign. Thank you, everyone. I'll put it back in my folder.
Thank you.
The next is 4.2, approve the business manager contract for 22-23, 23-24, 24-25. We have a motion.
I moved to approve.
Thanks, Brandon. And a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Angie. Okay, discussion on that, everybody get a chance to read through that. And thank you, Carlin, again, for redlining this. You're gonna see that there's very few changes in this, also updating salaries to compensatory amount.
The only thing I would like to bring up is as far as the insurance benefits under life insurance, I feel it should be at least 1.5 times the annual salary. I think $50,000 is, that's way under what we should be giving our employees.
Just when we look at the superintendent.
If I have to sing about it, I don't know it's gonna cost at least that. that's pretty standard for, I know we have plenty, but it's pretty much standard for me and Clint. It's 1.5 times, so.
And so it's a total for the 3-year basic compensation, 7% increase.
It's a little over, it's pretty close to 7. Total package is 764 for the first 2 years. And then 763 the last 2. And that sheet that I just put in front of you, I didn't catch this earlier, that when I did the salary increase, I entered the total package numbers there instead, so that's the difference between the document you probably saw earlier versus this one here, so.
There, the second bucket cost to the life insurance increase that Mark questioned.
I'm sure there is, I don't have the idea what that would be.
And just, I don't know if everybody's aware, but Bob is not working under contract right now. So we have, and I should go back and apologize for, so we had these discussions in the fall with the finance committee, Rob, Hamlin, Brandon, and I, on these contracts. And we thought that with the election being so close, it was just better to have the new board involved in those conversations and approve those contracts because they would be working under the new board. So we held off doing that. And we wanted to do them right away in January, which would have been appropriate, especially considering, where Bob was at. And Mark, if he's interested in looking at a different position, has to have time to do that. And everybody else, in January, we really, we had, deal with an emerging issue with our health insurance for our staff here, and the finance committee invested significant time into that. And then these went on the back burner, and that's my fault. And we didn't get to it at that time. So this is one of the, probably the biggest reason I wanted to have this discussion tonight and get these things worked out. So again, Bob, great work, and I apologize that we don't have you on the contract right now.
Not a problem.
So
That, as it stands, the finance committee that's in place now has not met and talked about this, okay?
I think the proposed dollars that the previous finance committee laid forth is certainly in line with what I would expect for increases. It's in line with what we've done with settlements for other staff. Actually, under what we've done for other staff.
If we wanted to amend that life insurance component, what does that take, or what does that look like?
It's never been a priority for Bob when we went into negotiations, which is why it stayed at $50,000. There was always places that Bob would rather have those numbers. So not that 150 or 250 or whatever would be an issue, because I think the cost of the insurance, I'm just thinking about mine, it's probably around, I don't know, I guess around $4,000.
So yours is about 2650.
2650. So, and Bob's a lot healthier than I am, so.
And the one reason, once you cross that $50,000 threshold, then it becomes taxable. So that's why it's never been.
Anybody on staff that gets more than 50 has to pay taxes on the overage.
Sure.
So, this is like a salary, which is maybe why it's never got priority for Bob during our negotiations.
Great point, Omar. Any other, questions about Mr. House's contract? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the business manager contract for 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and so we are on to 4.3, approve superintendent.
Ken, I didn't say aye. I just received this, and I just think that for due diligence sake, that it would have been better as a finance committee to review these prior to the full board viewing them. So I see the numbers, but being new to the school board, and I trust like what you guys put forth, but just to ask questions and dig into it and look at comparables, I feel like that I would just like to abstain from voting for this tonight.
So what, is there something that you need that going forward we should have? So I will say the precedent has been, over the last 15 years, as long as I've been on the board, is that the finance committee, much like policy, they go and work through these contracts. They bring them to the board, and then we walk through them with the board. And if the board has concerns, you take them up then. And so this is the first time on Friday, it was the first time that I've had, or known of, that we've had concerns with that process. We do that with every contract we have in the district. We put them in the folder and bring them forward. If that's something that this board would like to change, we certainly can do that. Or we can entertain doing that, but that's how we've done it for 15 years.
So just who determines this then?
Who works out?
The numbers.
The contracts, all of our administrator contracts and stuff are actually negotiated with that particular administrator and Mark. And the only contracts that like finance committee and stuff are associated with is like the master agreement with KMEM, and then Mark's contract itself, to kind of work through some of those details. But Mark always, sits down with the principals and sits down with Bob and everyone else that has an independent contract in the district and works through those things. And then we bring it to the board here to look at it and head it over.
Is that how other districts do it too? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you,
I'm
in
just
Byron this
thinking-
year, the Byron School District has hired Margaret Skelton from Ratlick.
Yeah.
And Ratlick is going to be doing the negotiation for the district in Byron. And so that's certainly an option that any district has. You've got a lot of different ways that people do it. There's actually been a lot of trust in the past from the board to allow the superintendent to negotiate these contracts with the individuals that are on at-will contracts throughout the district. And we can see some of that trust is waning with individual school board members. But I hope as you take a look at this, you see the numbers that are before you with Bob's contract and with the finance committee from last year with my contract. You'll notice that we always treat our teachers in a pretty good fashion as far as the wages that we provide to them. And my goal when I go into each one of those individual meetings, Kate, is to make sure that the salary that any of these independent contractors, or what we call our at-will employees, is always lower than what the teachers get in that same package. So
No.
there are occasions when we've offered a higher contract to some individuals because we've done some comparative analysis. A perfect example would be Ashley. Another example would be our TLCs. But there's a number of individuals who actually get a higher percentage than the teachers on some occasions because we found their contracts are not competitive with others in the area.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think it has anything to do with trust. I think just due diligence of the board and the fiduciary responsibility of the board. And then upcoming concerns. So also, just curiosity and being newer, does it take into account, like I know this is a 3-year contract and a 4-year contract, but does it take into
They're both
a
3-year
3-year
contracts.
contract? Yeah, you're right. Like, are we just estimating what we're gonna receive then, because that's not finalized yet? For funding?
Well, we always try to base this off the last teacher contract. So if you've been up to the state legislature with me already this year as well. And remember, the previous largest increase we've ever received as a school district is 2.5% and 2% in my reign here. So right now, the House is sitting at 4 and 2, the governor's sitting at 4 and 2, and the Senate's sitting at 4 and 5. We're anticipating that the revenues coming in are going to be much more significant than what we've ever received in the past. And if, as you've been following along, you notice that the targets came out for both the House and the Senate. And with those targets, a lot of the mandates that we were worried about when you came up to visit with us are now gone from the bill, at least in the Senate bill. So as the conference committee gets together, we would hope that a lot of those mandates that we thought were really going to cost our district a lot of money in the future would be gone, and we'd focus a lot more on the revenues. So I'm expecting that we'll have a nice fund balance or revenues coming in through this next legislative session when it closes on May 23rd. The difficulty with some of these contracts, as Kent has already mentioned, is that we're already a year behind on Bob's. And the other piece of this puzzle is if the school district would decide not to renew the contract of the superintendent, by this time of the year, it being April, if that would have been happening, then we would be putting the superintendent at a great disservice by not allowing them to go out and apply for other positions throughout the state. So that's just a little bit about why where we're at today. And I appreciated the board actually allowing an opportunity for all the new board members to have a little look at this new contract instead of trying to sneak this through back in October, so that they give the board a chance to take a look at this, because we knew there would possibly be some new members on this board. So I was very appreciative back in the fall of the year when they said this would happen. And I think you realize there was a lot of focus this year on the high healthcare rates that have come out even since the beginning of the year. And that focus of the school board to make that happen and to actually provide some additional dollars for our teachers in that time and it passes tonight. I think there were some other priorities than actually looking at these salaries.
So at times and stuff, we do have to settle 2 and 3 year contracts without knowing, the futures of that, year 3 and stuff, without knowing the actual biennium. There's only a few things that follow specifically that, and obviously the master agreement and stuff sits in that 2 year cycle as well. And we usually hold off, historically and stuff, we've kind of held off to negotiate the financial package of that, just so both parties and stuff have a better idea of, maybe where some of that money is. But our independent, or like our at-will contracts and stuff, we usually sign 2 3 year contracts that don't really, I guess, not really, looking specifically at, what those futures are.
Yeah, that makes sense. So generally, when do we like to get the superintendent in this contract completed?
January.
Gotcha.
And I can appreciate what everyone has said. I think though, especially with what we've just kind of gone through and kind of realizing the funding and how strapped we are, I can appreciate wanting to take some extra time just to make sure that, we have the funds and to really kind of go through that, because we are getting further away from our fund balance goal. And so just to make sure that, Brandon, you had mentioned at a previous meeting that it's all of our responsibility to be looking at our finances and to make sure we know where the bills and stuff are going. So just getting this tonight and making sure that that aligns with everything, I can appreciate wanting some extra time for that. And I know that there are reasons to not send copies of things electronically, but according to MSBA, things can be made available for viewing prior to. And so maybe that's something we do consider in the future, having it available in the office for review, 72 hours in advance or something, so that we can make sure that we're, I didn't bring a copy of the district's bills with me for the last few months. It'd be nice to just go and make sure and, so that I'm doing my due diligence for the taxpayers and where we're spending their money.
The other thing I think about is for the MOU, we had 7 meetings for 44,000. So this is a substantially more amount of money. So whether or not, I agree with these numbers, I can't decide. But I feel like this is so much more that it requires more time to review or to go through or to weigh, or it would be nice to know the background. Do you know what I mean?
So like,
And I think, maybe that's an area where if I'm helping people get up to speed, I can take some ownership in that. So then that's something I should just like down and put it on speed and say, okay, this is what's coming up. Here's the process, here's this. And so, okay, I can take onus for that. And that's something that I can help.
That's sweet, but even if you did, we didn't have it to look at either, to like go through. I mean, I guess we could have had the current one maybe,
Yeah,
but
we have current contracts and we certainly don't have to those. So it's something I can help. Because it is hard when you're a new board member, right? Like, we've all been there at one point. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
for sure, it's overwhelming. And so to get these like on this day, it just seems like a lot. And I want to do right by the community and for the district, but it doesn't feel like sufficient time to.
Okay, would it be beneficial to run through each point in the contract before we vote on the contracts today? Because we can certainly do that. That way you can ask every question that you'd like to ask today in front of some people that really know the answers.
Sure.
So I think that'd be very beneficial.
Okay,
So we have a motion and a second on Bob's contract. Go right.
Well, we're still in discussion. Would that be beneficial to run through Bob's contract?
We voted.
Bob's done.
We voted and Kate. So we can go back to it.
we could, or,
If-
okay,
Kate, if that will make a difference for you, we certainly can go through, I mean, we already planning to do that through Superintendent Patrice's contract. We can go through each point in Mr. House's contract, if that makes sense.
I think that'd be very beneficial.
that sounds great. Okay, great.
So, do we have to do what?
No. The vote is through with Bob's. The question is whether or not you want to go through Bob's contract with you. We got 6 yeses and an abstention.
We can discuss it.
Yeah, go through it.
Okay. So start with the term of the contract. In this term, again, we're behind, starts July 2022, expires June 2025.
And what that means is due to the fact that Bob's already started working this year, he will get some retro pay.
Right.
So that pay will be in probably a lump sum payment that he will, with the taxes and the PERA taken out of it, so, but going forward, he'll be back on a once a month payment plan. Any questions about the term?
Duty years and leave, 260-day employee. Vacation of 20 days there. Holidays, New Year's, Memorial, Independence, Labor, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day.
I have a
New Year's
question.
Day.
The holidays, are those the same recognized by the district for everyone?
There's certainly,
We have 12-month employees, we have 11-month employees, we have 10-month employees, we have 9-month employees, we have part-time employees, we have non-contract employees, so not everybody has the same days.
So it's not just like state holidays?
No, it's just within their contract.
Everybody, all the unions negotiate that.
And you'll see in our principal contracts, that looks different too, because they each work a different amount of days.
Gotcha. What about vacation days, Humber? How's that determined?
Those are all determined independently as well. Every at-will contract is determined differently. We try to standardize that over the years. We got to do, there were a number of contracts that were all over the place with healthcare insurance, with paid leave, with bereavement leave. And I think in the past, almost 8 years, we've done a pretty nice job as a district to try to standardize those as much as possible, at least with our healthcare benefits, because those were all over the board. So paid vacation days changes, you could see different ones on all of them. Tenure in the district also is can make a difference with sick leave days, with vacation days. You'll see that in a lot of contracts throughout the state. So the longer you're in tenure, similar to a teacher's contract with 403B, the longer you're in the district, oftentimes you get a higher percentage.
How many years have you worked for
It's 19.
Thank you.
On vacation day per year.
I think that's a pretty sweet deal for the district.
Any other questions there? Basic compensation for the 3 years of the contract. We talked a little bit about that. Any questions about that basic compensation?
I have a question. So when you talked about it being, it was based on the previous years or based on what we're assuming we're gonna get for funding? Like, is this a projection that we're just assuming?
So,
I mean, I can answer. I mean, we're always about in the same page. Our teachers over the last 6 years have got 7.2, you can remember, we just looked at 7.98 for the last one, and the other one was 7.7, I think, 7.72. So we always try to make sure we get the teachers negotiated first,
And those percentages, are those,
2-year percentages.
but is that base salary or is that with
That's
benefits?
total package. I mean, it can be total package or salary. The salary, the last time, salary was 7.98 and total package was 7.72.
Okay, so,
Wow, I think that's right.
the total package would be higher.
Total package is usually lower.
how do you
8.07.
compare
That's
total
the EMOU.
package?
Oh, but
If
then-
people have different vacation days, different sick days, how is that compared?
This is the teacher total package. So they all get the same depending upon where they're at. Some may take single, some may take family, some may have a higher 403B than others, but the total package is, Bob knows exactly where every person that takes a healthcare plan. Bob knows exactly which people are where on the grid to make sure if they're getting a percent raise from step 3 to step 4. He knows exactly which people are taking a 403B, which ones don't take a 403B. So all of those are built right into a grid that we use with our teachers when we negotiate. And when we punch in a number, it tells us exactly what it's gonna cost the district, each the first and the second year, and then that comes up with that percentage. So if you take a look at the teacher settlement, in year 21-22, they got 3.99 on their salary increase. In the second year, they received 3.99 again, so their total package, which goes, you go over the 2-year total, is 7.98. So if you take a look at Bob's, he has a 398, a 338, and a 359. So that 2-year total for his first 2 years is 7.36, which is underneath of the teacher 2-year total. His second 2-year total is 6.97, which is under the teachers by a percentage underneath of what theirs is. So the average 2-year total for the entire staff was 798, Bob's was 7.36 and 6.97. Does that answer that?
Yeah, I'm just figuring out how to understand it.
Sure, you're doing,
Yeah.
asking the right question.
Any other questions? Basic compensation.
Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah,
It was helpful as far as comparison. And I guess as a board member, I appreciate that we continue to reward our administrative staff, but yet it's important that our teachers are rewarded as well. And so seeing our administrators fall just under where our teachers' total package comes in is that's an alignment.
It's always been intentional.
And these percentages, for salary increase and stuff are obviously higher than what we've previously done as well. But in comparison comparison to where we've last settled with with teacher salary and stuff, that's why these are more comparable.
Anything else on basic compensation? I don't want to leave the topic till we completely discussed it. Okay. Going to insurance benefits. Health and hospitalization. You want to walk through?
Each year, Bob has got an increase built into his health and hospitalization all the way from 2083 up from 2000 last year, to 2250 to 2416, and for year 25. So he chooses to be, are you choosing a family?
Yes.
So Bob's choosing our family plan, so he doesn't worry about the 720 single premium. And then his dental insurance, he takes a 108.72 per month for his family.
And then any insurance costs that are above and beyond those dollars are a requirement of the employee.
He pays out of pocket.
And there's been no increase in dental in this contract.
Correct.
So, for 3 years,
That's never a place people negotiate too often.
Right.
Especially when your kids are grown.
Well, you can see, in order to do all these negotiations, think about all these negotiations that your superintendent is expected to manage. I mean, certainly as a board or finance committee, you're not gonna, you know how much time you're gonna put in to manage all of these. It's not just this, all the administrators across the buildings, every group you have to. And I can understand why Byron, hires out somebody like Margaret Skelton, but it's expensive. It's gonna be very expensive here. I don't have any idea what that's gonna cost, but I don't think I should. It's gonna cost a lot of money, so we put that on, in part of his expectations that he's gonna do this and manage as well. And here's what his guide is, right?
Yeah.
You know where you
They're
guys.
they're also sitting on 6 planning board members.
Yeah.
So
It's also the
And
role of the
superintendent.
superintendent to do that, so it's not above and beyond necessarily, it's just a tough part of the job.
Yeah, no, there's a reason they get compensated, right? Because
there's interest from the finance committee in doing all these groups, just gotta look out.
I do not.
They both looked away from me.
I do not have an interest in our finance.
I think in good faith to vote on these, it would help me understand if we did go through a few of these and for our fiduciary responsibility. I feel like in the next few years, we're gonna have to be really creative, even though we're getting funding with enrollment going down. So how do you manage that? I just wanna be well informed and understand all the bells and whistles and inner workings of it.
I can appreciate that.
Not at all saying I need to go through every contract though, but this is the first one of our term, so.
Anything else for health and hospitalization in that? Okay, life insurance, we've discussed this a little bit. Anything else on life insurance here?
No, thanks for that clarification, Bob.
On the language.
Long-term disability insurance? Liability insurance. Questions there?
Most of these should be your own contracts, probably.
Yeah. Claims against the school district? Okay, then we'll go on to other benefits, automotive. Not buying a car, not getting a car. We will compensate you.
And you can use that school van.
Love that van. Okay. Evaluation. Done on a regular basis. else, direct reports. Professional meetings. Any questions there? Would like Bob to go to those. I'm sure it's always things changing and there's a lot of work to do. Bob does an incredible job. You know how hard it is to find a business manager like Bob has. We're gonna struggle to find one who's good at him someday, that's for sure.
I agree.
Dues. With local membership, state, national, professional association. Be reimbursed for that. Any questions on that?
Yeah, is there associations, what ones are there, business
Yep,
managers?
there's a strong state organization and then also national.
How much are those?
I
Sure, it's
believe
changing every year.
the national are like 300 and the state are like 250 per year.
That's pretty reasonable.
That's very reasonable.
Business managers, they know there's no extra money.
They want to be the first thing cut.
And they would be the first thing cut.
Okay, anything else on dues? Okay, how about 403B or the Roth 403, Roth 403B matching contribution for $7,000 annually? We will match. Questions on that?
There's been no changes to that.
Yeah, when was the last time that was updated or increased?
That's a great question.
I think 2022, I think is the last time. I think it was about 500.
2022?
So in 2021, it would have been.
Oh, okay. So when you're doing individual contracts, are these things you have to request, or is there kind of a way you project?
We know what kind of money we can spend to stay underneath the teacher's contract. And sometimes we emphasize salary, sometimes we emphasize the 403B, sometimes we emphasize the healthcare savings plan. Sometimes healthcare indicates exactly what we're going to be able to do.
How does this number compare to teachers' retirement matching? Because we do that
Full, you mean,
too.
we don't have any teachers that go up 260 days.
Oh, so the number is very different.
Thanks for making that clarification.
So I don't, it's a high teacher there. See, that's negotiated with the teachers too, so we can always say, teachers will tell us how much they'd like to put on the 403B, and if they want it increased, we can certainly do that. Remember, that comes against their salary, could come against their health care, so they too have that pool of money, and sometimes they can put a lot more into healthcare, sometimes they can put more into the 403B, and sometimes they put more into the salary. So depending upon where they want it, we know there's a figure that they can do it. So some years, like healthcare right now, we're seeing a lot of people saying we really need to increase the healthcare. So what will that mean to the salary for the 403B for the teachers? Well, the same is true here. Bob's taking a look at this and said, well, this isn't where I want it, but if you look at his healthcare savings plan at the end of this contract, that's what Bob said he really would like to see some of those dollars. Maybe because they come out tax-free. And you retire. Which, when you get older, you start thinking about some of those things. Not that Bob's old.
Thanks for remembering.
Anything else on 403B? Okay. Indemnification and provisional of counsel, if Bob acting what as a business manager in some way in we have to covering the litigation.
It's criminal. Don't be stealing money from Zed.
Okay. Then we'll jump to the healthcare savings plan and retirement insurance. Superintendent Patuska indicated this is where I wanted to see a change.
Yeah, these dollars could have certainly went to the 403B as well. They could have also went to salary. But keep in mind, we wanted to keep that salary and the total package lower than what the teachers settle for. So to do that, kind of forced the balance here to go 8,000, 8,000, 8,200. And Bob has been here 10 years, so he's 100% vested.
Thank you. Almost double this up. Any other questions there? Okay. And conduct expectations. Sure, we have to have this in here for Mr. Fox. And the last one, this is a net well contract, so, every year or 3 years, it comes up and we can either re-sign these or not. So. Any other questions on the contract in general? I will just say thank you again, Bob, appreciate it. Thank you worth every penny we pay.
Well deserved, Bob.
Okay, so we had a vote on this. So we will move on to 4.3, approve superintendent contract for year 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26. Do we have a motion to approve the superintendent contract?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Randy. Second. Second. Thank you, Mark. Okay, discussion. So I think, again, we started a nice job of walking through these. It makes sense to walk through these in detail. Again, Carlin did a really nice job of doing the redlining, so you'll see what's changed. There's really very little has changed in this contract. But the contract starting on Article 3, I guess, duration of this contract. You'll see in the red there, 23 July 1st to June 30th, 2026. Any question on the duration? I will say that if you're happy with the performance of your superintendent, you typically give them multi-year contracts. If there's any concern, then or there's something else, you're doing 1-year contracts. So, I think we've all seen the reviews of Superintendent Patuska, or maybe not everybody's seen those. We've had tremendous reviews, positive reviews on the superintendent just doing his job, and that's the rationale for a 3-year contract. I think you look around the facility and see where we're at.
Who does the reviews?
The board does. Superintendent, you'll see it in here, Superintendent Patuska has to request those reviews on an annual basis. And so I've got them back through.
Anytime anybody wants to take a look at them, I'd be happy to share all of them all the way back to 2011, 12.
Do we ever do employee reviews?
As a board, we don't. Our only review that we do is for the superintendent and the.
No, not, for Mr. Matuska.
Yes, that's our
The board
board.
does a review every year.
He's
As
our,
our
he's our own.
But does anyone in the 3 schools do reviews that we have access to?
Reviews of who?
Oh, okay, Mr.
Yeah, working
Matuska.
with you.
I
Do
think that
they
is
evaluate
something,
me? No,
Yeah.
just the board evaluates.
and I mean, that would have to go through the board. don't know, I'd have to look or check with MSBA, but I think that that can only happen at the request of the board, and to my knowledge, that has not been requested.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's even legal or allowed, that would be an MSBA thing. That was not covered in any of our training, except the fact that the board does the superintendent's review.
Sure.
And that's actually in the next section 2, but I don't want to leave section 1 to your duration until. Any other question on duration? Okay, then we're on to expiration, and this is that point where superintendent can, in written requests, and request an evaluation from the board.
And the deadline is coming on.
You're right. Any questions on that? Anything there?
Traditionally, we've done, Mr. Majuska's review in the summer, so at the end of the school year, so usually it's July-ish is when his annual review is.
The June. Yeah.
I don't remember in my tenure that we have, I mean, we've done a review every year, I think. This is the first time it hasn't been requested.
Correct. If there was a request past the March 30th date, would the board be?
Of course.
You would?
Absolutely.
Okay. On to termination during term. Any questions? Again, nothing changed in either of these sections.
Except a grammatical.
You know, the and, such an event. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to section 4, mutual
Okay, do
consent.
you have enough time to look through section?
I'm just finishing reading it.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, who's one?
So we're on to section 4, mutual consent.
Everybody's okay? Okay, mutual consent. Again, this is between the school board and superintendent. We decided that can terminate contract, we can do that. That's mutual consent on that. Any questions on that? Okay, contingency, section 5. In other words, if we're negotiating a contract, I think beyond while we're in another contract. Questions there? Okay. Duties, school board. Give you some time to do that if you want. And we give him, as a school board, the authority to act on our behalf. Manage the school employees, negotiate those contracts, do evaluations.
And it's well grounded in the policies that we have. It's outlined very well.
Usually like the, kind of written in there, right, like the board, we need to stay at that visionary level and not get involved in the granular details.
I'll let people read through it. I don't want to move on until everybody.
I don't know. Anyone else
I
is
mean, I
probably
think
the slowest one.
NG really hit the right point. Board stays at 20,000 feet. The superintendent manages the district, and honestly, wouldn't even be feasible to try and the little bit of time we spend here manage these pieces of the district. So we do our best to stay at 20,000 feet. And again, we have an expectation that things come through the chain of command, right? And if it needs to, then it comes. Always, who's going to, if that doesn't get resolved there, come to the board. Okay, moving on to the basic work year, 12-month contract. Pretty much, probably the Superintendent Matuska is either connected to or around or available probably 18 hours of his 24 hours of the day when he's not sleeping. I don't, always, I mean, we just have a basic work year here, but I don't know there's a time that doesn't have this district in the back of his mind and thinking about things in the district, working on them. It doesn't matter if he's at the grocery store, or at the coffee shop, or at the track meet or softball games or something. You'll see him in attendance in a lot of places. So the basic work year, yeah, it's, and even when we get into vacation, yeah, there's vacation days, but you'll see him, I think he's always engaged. So anything on the basic work year. By the way, I think that's a prerequisite of a successful superintendent is that they're always connected with it.
What, if Bob's a 260 employee, what does that make you? 262. Does that get put anywhere in the contract or no? Because wouldn't that be under basic work year or no?
I think it's just different semantics, so this one says 12-month contract year, this days.
Yeah, entire 12-month contract year.
Could we add it either?
Are we negotiating the contract here?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't believe
I
we're
think it's
negotiating
helpful.
right now, but I don't know, the 260, is there, I mean, we can always add that in the future. I don't think anybody's ever had a concern about, him being 12-month employee. I do think.
Right, but if we delineate it for other independent contracts, don't you think it would just be congruent then?
I think the discrepancy can be different. I mean, I think it is semantics, and I think it's because, the 260 days is something that Mark chooses in the language that he chooses with the contracts that he negotiates. And as a board, we have somewhere along the line set that precedence of the language that we will use the entire 12-month contract year. I don't know legally what the benefit would be to change it to 260, but I do think moving forward that might be beneficial and it's just a nice to have.
I guess the biggest thing I read in the 12-month versus the 260 is on Saturdays when there's something going, some big event, and do we expect Mark to be here? Graduation, stuff like that. It's more than 260. It's not just here 260. You know what I mean?
Well,
I expect him to be at a lot of things, which he is, and it's more than 260. I don't want to put, I wouldn't, this is me, but I would not hamstring it for saying, oh, he has to be here 260 days, that's his contract, 260. He's really not, I don't think a successful superintendent is here 5 days a week.
So should we in the future add that language under the basic work year? Like the expectation is that you're at school events outside of, you know what I mean? Like
But I
maybe
also
if
don't
that's an
think
expectation,
we're
it's not laid
delineating
out.
on Monday through Friday. I think it's just for comparison's sake. If we do have all these employees, it's easier to understand as a board member, and I think anytime you can make a easier to understand, it's worthwhile.
I think those are good things that we can think about for future contracts, right? At this point, this is a motion and a second on the table, so we can review a contract. And it's important enough for us to deny approval of the contract over tonight, and that's something that, I don't know if that would be a sticking point that would be garnering enough tonight, but certainly something for the future that we can go through negotiating.
A work meeting in the future might be beneficial for when we're talking about the contract, with no actions taken and it's not a public meeting.
I agree.
A work session, sorry.
That's what this is.
No, this is a special school board meeting, so we can take action.
Like instead of making it an agenda item, it would be nice to review it,
I think that's something. we should-
or an action item, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
The precedence here is that this will be my my fifth contract. And I can tell you, I've put in at least 260 days per year.
Well, I guarantee you have, and I've
that's something
witnessed
that,
all of the time you've put in
If
as
that's
a
something that
recent.
it should be documented by Carlin, that says in the next contract to make it similar to other contracts in the district, of
Yeah.
260-day employees, that it should be entered in there.
So in the future, just for clarity's sake, to dig into this is a learning experience for myself as well. And in 3 years, we might be having a new superintendent, and it will be really essential that we've had experience going over this. So previously in the fall, this was done with a member who's no longer on the school board. So for the next board, and depending on elections, I think it's good that we just
Document the
establish,
changes,
yeah,
like
this is what it looks like, this is the precedent, and I'm sure that it comes out of left field because everyone's had a lot of experience on the school board except Patrick and I, so they understand that precedent, but I'm just learning it.
I'm gonna read it. It's gonna be multiple perspectives. Anything else on the basic work here? Okay, on to section 2, vacation. 30 working days, 8 vacations in a contract year. So what really has changed here is we had it where it was a 6 month, at 6 month, had 6 months after the contract to get that paid out. The issue is if he was to retire next contract or at any point during the, at the end of that year, that would put, that would require him to pay taxes on that during that year he was working. So it'd be better to go for him and for the district to go out beyond that, to allow 2 years. We don't have to pay that as a district. We can realize that cash until it's paid out. So for us, there's benefit there. For him, there's benefit from a tax perspective. So it went from 6 months to 2 years. That's what you see that red line change there. So it's two years to request that.
Two calendar years, not 2 years.
Thank you. I'll let you read that. Any questions on that?
I have a question, when is the last time that increased?
The 30 working days.
Mm-hmm.
You were at 20 previous to this one. Still remember how many years ago that was.
When you look around the HBL and other superintendents, it's somewhere from 20 to 40 days.
The first contract I signed was 20.
How many years ago was the first contract?
2011, 12. The next contract.
Byron has 25. Their contract is posted online, so
Stewie's 25, Byron's 25, Highland's 40, PTO, Lake City's 25, Zambrota's 29, Camden's 25, Goodhue's 24, Kasson-Mantorville's 30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 20 in the second year, second contract, I should say. Next one was 20. Then it went to 25. That was actually 14, 17 is when I went to 25. 30 in 17 to 20. So it's been in place since 2017.
Any other questions on vacation? Okay, section 3 is holidays. 11 paid holidays, both on New Year's Day, President's Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and one additional floating holiday.
So that equals 12. Right?
11 paid plus the holiday, floating holiday.
it would be, for future, it doesn't change the terms of the contract now, but just to say the superintendent should be entitled to 12 total paid holidays, 11 designated by the school board, and 1 floating. That's just more clear, but
I think that's the same language in nearly every contract we have. You might know better. 11 paid holidays and 1 additional.
Maybe we could add that language then,
Yeah.
11 paid holidays and 1 additional, because when you list them, like right after it, it looks like that's included and then the number would be inaccurate.
So what it says in the last line, and 1 additional, 11 paid and 1 additional.
Yeah.
So they match.
Again, it doesn't change the terms of the contract at all.
Okay. Anything else with holidays? Okay, on to section 4, sick leave. The rate is 2.5 each working month, up to 160 days, 60 days of sick leave accumulated. So all of that is the same. What is different in the, there was a entitlement of salary payments, that little piece of red there, it was just adding that for clarification. What is changed again is the 2 calendar years, a payment out over 2 calendar years at the superintendent's request. Again, the same rationale.
So while employed, these can only be, when they're accumulated, they can only be converted into payments into an HSA or a healthcare savings plan? Or can these be converted into payments into salary? Because it just says that after
Not until termination.
So,
So the
okay,
second paragraph is termination.
right,
The first one is like this June. So I can take up to 20 days at the daily rate of pay, which I think I've done 2 years in a row. Probably.
and just put it in your health savings account.
Correct.
Yeah,
My healthcare savings plan,
yeah,
which is different than the HSA.
Anything else in sick leave then?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just trying to find though. I am not familiar with performance pay. So when is that determined and is that just
Are you under sick leave or?
under sick leave? It says
Under
under sick
Article
leave
9.
days.
In Article 9, Section 2, I think you just read that probably. Article 9, Section 2.
So it's determined at the end of a year for the upcoming year? Is that right?
Yep, that decision will be in June.
Okay.
So last year, we laid out specific objectives for Mr. Matuska, and they're assigned a percentage for him to earn. So by completing those specific objectives that we laid out for him, he has the opportunity to earn that portion of his salary.
My understanding is that the superintendent brings the goals to us, that we don't outline and set the directive on that. We just approve it or not.
We
I mean-
changed them, we've changed
Okay,
them multiple
okay.
times. He brings some, typically, we will, say, let's do something in this area. We've done that before, and then we've also modified percentages, almost every time they
Okay.
come, we modify percentages, what we think is valuable as a board to the district.
Are we jumping to that part?
No,
I think.
No, I just wanted to
At
see
every
if-
August meeting, either July or August, we've done it as a board.
Yeah, you come with and we then help
Some ideas.
define,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep, now we determine what that.
Sometimes we throw them out, and we've added some in, so, yeah, he does come with them.
I'm just, the question, I'm sorry guys, I didn't mean to dig us into performance pay, but it's just that it's, known prior to this. It's not like something that would be decided and back paid, was where I was going with it.
Performance pay is in June.
Right, for the upcoming year, so if you did cash in sick days for the next year, that amount would be known. The daily rate, because it would have already been established, right?
So I think the way kids explained it is it's actually back. So for the 22-23 school year, he has to complete the school year, complete all the objectives for that year, and then we either approve or deny that performance pay at the end of the school year. So we
And then
already,
that percentage goes on the previous year,
yeah, it's part of his 22-23.
so how does that get paid? In a lump sum?
Correct.
Okay. So then how is this including performance pay?
At the end, the daily rate. So you take the annual salary plus a performance pay divided by the number of days.
Either that's already been paid in a lump sum or it hasn't been
If I've
established.
used it. See, you've got the either or. I can use it up above prior to, down below are the leftover days. At the end of life. Work.
You're upon, end of employment.
Upon voluntary termination of employment is the second paragraph.
Right, so,
The other one is during any school year.
and if you were to leave it in the middle of any school year, like, it gets paid in a lump sum no matter what.
Within 2 years of voluntary employment, voluntary termination of employment.
Let me think of how to ask this in a different way. One
I
second.
think that if he left in the middle of the school year, he wouldn't have met his
He wouldn't.
objectives for the full year.
Right, and
Right.
probably wouldn't qualify for the performance pay.
Right.
What I'm thinking though, so how this language reads, shall be entitled to a salary payment for any unused sick leave days at the daily rate of pay, parentheses, including performance pay, parentheses. Can you give me an example of like how that would work
I've
then?
got 25 days left of sick leave in June of my retirement year. Those 25 days in June, then, Jody would take a look at those 25 days and say, okay, we need to pay Mark off on his sick leave days. We'll give him a lump sum 25 days times whatever my daily rate is, which is my salary, plus the performance pay, or if I get it,
Mhm.
and those two would give you the performance. So if I make $300 in salary a day and $25 in performance pay, I get paid out $325.
I get what you're saying. That makes more sense. Thank you for explaining that.
Any other questions on sick leave? Okay, workers' compensation, section 5. Any questions on that?
Not standard language mandated by the state. Or we're directed by the state to protect that.
You know, chapter 176.
Protected under law, is what I meant to say.
Anything in workers' compensation? Okay. Government leave, that is pretty standard language also. I don't think we've touched bereavement in a long time.
That would also be deducted from sick.
Bereavement one? What about emergency leave? There's no like determination of a limit of days or anything like that?
No, there hasn't been, I've never used it.
Never used on that item or.
That might be something in the future.
Yeah, to establish. Or like a
The
requirement.
school board
to-
chair gets the discretion there. So
Yeah.
if there was emergency leave, and they said, well, you need 6 months, and you say, we can't pay you for 6 months. So then the board chair has to come up and say,
Maybe that's something we need to look at in our policies too, because you get a board chair who doesn't, there's the potential for it to not be favorable. So you just want to make sure that if there's some sort of guideline to go off of, just for protection purposes. That contracts and policies is what we're going for.
Might put some type of number on that, right? It's this
Oh,
is,
for
this is
sure.
emergency leave.
Especially if
This
you're
is
not
something-
using like paid vacation days or holidays, so this is an addition. Like you're getting paid and we also have to pay an intern. So I think it would be nice to delineate or put some parameters on this.
Or
section
time frame.
seven.
It may not be payment in term though, if the emergency leave was 5 days.
True,
In
but,
that situation, we won't pay payment in term.
right,
right now, it'd be,
I mean, it's unlikely you'd use it, I'm just
Need
saying
to
for
be
the strength of
vacation.
the contract.
I mean, if I went to Kent and said, I need some emergency leave, the first question I hope he'd ask is how much vacation leave you have. Eat up your vacation.
Okay,
I'd probably ask
that's,
why.
are you
first.
okay?
Or if it was family related, he'd say, why are you losing your sick leave? Family care leave. So I don't know if emergency leave would have to be, you'd have to be about out of everything.
Yeah, why is it in here then, is my question.
I can see a situation where if you had all your time is used up because you're caring for a sick loved one, and then, you come back and all of a sudden, another family member ends up in the hospital, and you need to leave, you need some time off for that. So there's circumstances, very few
Your
and far
second baby
between,
in the same year.
which if that happens, I don't know if Susie's gonna be too excited.
You know what I'm saying? So that could be, I mean, there's a lot of
Well,
places.
that wouldn't be emergency, 2 babies would not be emergency, unless the baby came and you didn't know she was having it.
That could be it. There's a lot of different things.
All right, we're going down a rabbit hole. Can we go back? Any other questions on emergency leave?
Jury services,
That's protected by law,
military leave,
same.
disability, that, so that 85% was a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know how that, I must have missed that. That should stay 85%. That would, somehow that must have been there.
So like even this language where it says, has exhausted all accumulated sick leave, something like that, I think would be a good
For the emergency leave.
wording, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I got it.
85% is staying, you said?
Yeah, this reads as if it's the entire salary.
And I don't agree with that.
Keep it at about,
What,
I think that's been resolved. 85 stays in. Well, anything else there on the medical leave, which is also,
Covered by law.
anything on any of those sections? Insurance application. Okay, insurance application, essentially Mark can participate in the group.
We always provided full health and dental in the contracts. I mean, has that been, when you came here, Mark, is that something, I get you negotiate what are priorities to you, but I'm just curious.
I think in the second contract I ever signed, you put that second row in.
Okay.
Or it's that last sentence.
So I'll jump down there, sorry, I was one above that, but Article 7, health and hospitalization and dental insurance, so. You see essentially the last line there, certainly superintendent will be provided full family health and dental benefits under medical eligibility through the district's provided plan if they accumulated 10 years in the district and have reached age 57. So Mark reached that last year's, right?
Last March. I was very intentional for so many years to make sure I was paying in because I knew in the negotiation process that it could come back to haunt you if you were full health. Well, sure enough, as soon as we get into a healthcare crisis this past year, I go to full health. So it is what it is. It's been in there for a long time, so.
So this part that's taken out, so we don't have a dollar amount that we're giving you.
Full.
We cover everything.
Right.
Okay,
So the principals are under full, superintendent's under full, who else was?
I don't think there is anybody that doesn't have a flat dollar amount. Everything. These two groups, I think, so.
So, yeah, so the last line is the reason the red is struck out, right?
In case you're interested, Stewie's full for their soup. Byron is, they didn't say full, but it's 26,750. Pine Island's full. Lake City is full single, except their new hire just got full family. So, Sunbrook and Mazeppa is full family. Cannon Falls is 26,000. Goodhue is 19,865, and Kasson-Mantorville is full family. So nearly all the superintendents have full.
questions on section 1 under insurance, health and health, hospitalization, and dental insurance? Okay. How about section 2, life insurance, $750,000?
I do have some questions about that. As Mark had brought up, that is well over the 1.5 times that's typical of employers. And I'm just wondering if that has changed in the, throughout the contracts that you've signed and when. Because that seems like a really big number.
When I came here, I had 4 kids.
Yeah, I think.
Believe me, that's,
That's
less than half of my life insurance.
Use 6-year annual salary.
Mayo only offers 1.5 times.
You can add.
Yeah.
You can, but we're paying for it. If I change it, I
So
have to
am I.
pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm paying taxes on
Well, I'm paying more out of pocket for it, I guess, but I have pre-existing, so maybe that's why.
I think it's a good question. It's something I would like to know as
it.
well.
My first contract was 500,000.
In 2011. Which is what year?
Correct, 2011.
Because I mean, it's higher than what some of the other districts are, and so I was just,
I do remember that those conversations way back there with Guy Paradise, and I was like, got a big family, life insurance, pretty important, you know, at that time.
Sure.
And so we negotiated.
Just objectively, it's good to look at the numbers.
Be more than willing to put that on my salary for the next 3 years, buy my own insurance, and get a higher TRA benefit.
Is this something
which
that,
is, we're not negotiating the
We're not
contract right
negotiating.
now, so.
That's why we didn't do that.
is this something that ends with employment?
Yeah. It's
This
Yeah.
contract ends,
Yeah,
contract ends every 3 years.
Right,
so when the contract ends.
But the life insurance does too.
yeah, okay.
But you can still pay, or you can still.
I could choose to keep it with State Farm if I wanted to. I think we bought a 10-month term, 10-year term. And if it stops getting paid, we just go broke.
So you would just pay it if you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 1 child left that's in college. And
No, you don't have to explain that part of it. I'm just understanding it.
this is the 2011 contract, there's 500,000.
How about long-term disability, section 3? Any questions on what we provide there? And we can, I guess, group that with the long-term care insurance on the next page. We provide,
Is that pretty typical in contracts,
Which one?
long-term care insurance
No,
for the school to
I
pay?
think there's 3 contracts like that in the HBO.
any questions on either of those? Any other-
I would guess there's less than 25 of those in the state.
Not under long-term care insurance, but just, you're required to have liability insurance, correct?
I have,
But it's not, in our contract, we're not saying that he has to, but the law says that you have to. So I'm worried about that. That's not covered in this
through
contract.
NASA and AASA, my liability.
Right, but we're not asking in this contract for proof of it. You must be paying that on your own, because that's not included in the contract.
I have my own umbrella policy that I carry for since 2017. which is my lifetime care.
But we're not asking for that in our contract.
Will we be paying the dues for MASA?
You are. And AASA.
I think because it's required by law, it needs to be outlined in the contract.
What's MASA?
That's my superintendent's group from Minnesota.
Oh, okay,
The national one is AASA.
okay.
I didn't have time tonight to dig into exactly where it states that in the law. I was just working through that. but I know it's required by law, so I wonder, I mean, we should have that in
So
there
add something that says,
about liability insurance.
liability, through MASA or whatever, that they have.
And even if they're paying for it on their own, it needs to be included.
Is the school district required to have that or is it employee?
I'm pretty sure that our general liability policy covers any action that you as a board and Mark as a superintendent.
But in all the other superintendent contracts, the liability insurance is listed separately, and all of them say as required by law for the school district. Nobody has identified which law, and so I want to know, is the language of the law okay that it doesn't have to be included, or that it is covered under other things or not?
I don't
Well,
know
it would
if
have
it's-
to, because we don't have every single law included in the contract.
Well, I think if we legally are requiring it, or if it's required, that liability insurance piece, it should be in the contract.
I agree with that, especially if other contracts are including it.
And that's just, I just didn't have time to research and look into that more to make sure. We very well could be covered one way or another. I just want to make sure when I see that it's not specifically stated in the contract, it's saying that we're not requiring that of someone when it actually is required by law. So we need to be requiring that in the contract.
And to be clear, we're paying for it, right?
We're being.
For liability insurance,
Yeah,
like we do for
and-
Bob.
And Bob.
Correct, yeah.
So with that,
But
we
it's separate
know,
for Bob. He has his liability insurance listed separately,
with that, then we know
Right.
it's covered, right?
but we don't in the superintendent's contract.
We don't have the language in there, but we know it's covered because we're buying it, correct?
I just pulled up one contract, and they've got it right there after long-term disability insurance. It says, school district shall provide a school district expense liability insurance in the amount of $1 million, naming the superintendent as an insured along with the school district, except that the amount shall not be less than what is required by the law for the school district.
And Byron's has liability insurance, similar language, but does not have the dollar amount in it.
So we've got it, we just don't identify it in the contract.
Just saying we should, in the future, we should identify it.
I think it should be
I feel like
identified
we
now.
need to, this is why I think it was important that we would evaluate it before just bringing it for an action. Because there's a lot of things I think that new board members and old board members are bringing up for adjustments and improvements, which is good. We don't want weaknesses in it.
I don't know if this is a weakness, or if this is just the fact that you don't have it. I mean, it's not in the contract. The district holds it. I don't know if it's I don't know if this is a game stopper, Kate.
No, I think it's just making the strongest contract possible. I mean, it's a 3-year contract, so I want to give it due diligence and in good faith.
But it's
Make
not
the
a
best
sa-
we can.
It's not a salary or a fringe benefit and stuff. Ultimately, it's by law that the
No,
district has
it's
to
true,
do
but
it.
if we're seeing improvements that can be made, why not make them now? Why wait 3 years? Do you know what I'm saying? And we do have it in Bob's, and I mean, I like structure and congruency, so I just feel like if we could have it in there, it is something we're paying for. Legally, we're obligated to.
We don't have to pay for Mark's liability insurance if it's not in here, in the contract that states that we are paying for the liability insurance.
You pay for his dues.
And the liability is included in the dues. Because I know for coaching, for example, if you want that extra liability, you have to pay that out of your pocket. And that's through Minnesota State High School League. I don't know what it is for the SUPs.
I think.
And we'll have to decide what's important. I mean, if it's a stop for you or not when we vote, I guess.
I mean, it's covered, it's just not in the contract, right? But it's probably good to have in the contract.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, like I said, it's part of our general liability property insurance premium. that covers every employee in the district.
Up to $1 amount.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's $1 million or $2 million. So the only way that it wouldn't cover you is if you were negligent in not fulfilling your duties. So, like if you're a custodian, and you see a puddle of water out in the hallway, and you don't wipe that up, or put a sign out saying, there's a hazard here, and somebody slips and falls, you as that custodian didn't do your due diligence to make sure that the building was safe, so that individual could be held liable then and not have that necessary liability protection from the district. But as long as Mark is doing his duties as a superintendent, he would have that liability coverage under our policy.
And I appreciate you explaining it like that. I'm uncomfortable with not having it, but
Yeah, so
That's an
explaining
individual.
it like that, do you recommend though that it's in the contract?
It's not in Stewie's contract.
I don't know that it needs to be, because if state statute requires that we have a liability policy, we can't supersede state statute with our contract. So you could have a contract, you couldn't offer Mark a contract and say, we don't require you to have liability insurance, because
is the superintendent specifically listed under that? Because, I mean, they would have to be so taking a look at Byron's, it says the school district shall provide at school district expense liability insurance, including errors and omissions insurance, naming the superintendent as an insured, along with the school district, in an amount not less than which is required by the law for the school district. So I'm wondering, like,
I know that we have an errors and omissions policy that covers you and Mark, and I think myself.
okay, but it specifically names school board.
I believe so.
Okay, all right, then I feel better.
Stewie must be under the same thing, because I can't find it in their superintendent's contract either.
I'll double check that though, just to.
Thank you.
I'm looking through our teacher's contract right now. And I don't see that liability language in the teacher contract either. Is that in there?
I don't think so. But again,
Might be something to consider going into negotiations.
I just doing a quick look through it, and for, I imagine our teachers are under the liability umbrella as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Whether it's in the contract or not?
correct.
We should look to see if it's spelled out correctly though. I'm assuming.
I don't see it in there. I went through it a couple of times there, real quick though.
Thanks, that's all the discussion I needed on that, thanks.
6, claims against the school district. Anything there? Okay. On to Article 8, other benefits, tax shelter annuity, Section 1. That annually matching contribution will go from $12,000 to $13,000 in 2023-24, and to 15 in 2024, 25, 26 matching. And that's changed from the 403B to the 457. I think that's very much in line with what we see other superintendent contracts.
How come we change the 403B to a 457?
Because I access the 457 for my state plan, because I have combined service with the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
And it's got lower fees.
Sure, that makes sense.
Any questions on the 457? Okay, how about section 2 vehicles, again, just using a private vehicle for business use.
You should have included there putting a matching topper on the back of his.
You can't afford it. Negotiations.
Mark told us, and I just talked about that as we walked in together.
You always know it's me.
True. Bad enough I have to look at the different colors of the roofs.
Okay, on to section 6, conference and meetings. Again, we provide those expenses. We, when Superintendent Patuska requests those, we typically have, I think we always have some type of communication back and how some status for the meeting. So, and all itemized expenses are requirements of us.
Do we ever cap like per diem amounts for these? I noticed Bob's doesn't have it either for conferences.
The per diems, I don't think I've ever, really don't spend that.
Well, I don't think it's a per diem amount, it's just you use the district's credit card for those types of expenses.
Yeah, I just like in other professional contracts I've been in, there's always been like a meal limit, like $50 a meal or some kind
Similar
of
to what we had in the,
The field trip ones and stuff like that.
yeah.
I think this is done, I'll say more so like mine, right? Like, it's at your best discretion and don't abuse it, right?
Yeah, you might want to go to the state statute on the liability insurance, I believe it's 123B.23. And look, it says may, it doesn't say must. I'm just looking at it quick here.
Thanks. I'll look into that more as well, and Bob said he would as well, so I think, thank you.
Okay, anything else on conference and meetings? Okay, then Article 9, salary. Again, 3-year contract. Looking at salaries, trying to compare with other districts. That base salary for 11 years is not the highest, but at the top end of the Stewartville, Byron, Pine Island, Lake City, and Broda, Can't Falls, Fishview. But falling below people like, that are a little bigger the cost than Albert Lee Faribault.
Along with those superintendents in that position.
Stewartville, 5, Byron 1, Pine Island 10. That's the longest. Superintendent Patuska has been the longest tenured superintendent here, 11 years. It's not the highest in base salary. Lake City 8, Zumbrota 6, Cannon Falls 3, Goodhue 4.
Lake City, 0.
Lake City, oh,
Can
yeah.
those be shared with us, Ken?
Yeah,
If you have all those numbers?
Because looking at those numbers, it looks like it's a 19.872% increase from 2020 to the end of this contract of 2025.
again.
So if you're looking at the
Marks.
Mr. Marks, the 2020 to 2020, June 30, 2023, or all the way to June 30, 2025, it's a 19.872 increase in salary. And if you want to break it just this new contract, it's a 12.7% increase in salary.
Over 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the old one was
2020 to
13.3.
2026 is 6 years.
Pardon?
6 years.
The two contracts, yep.
So averaging
So
about
in 6 years,
3% per year.
$30,000 over 6 years.
What was that average over 6?
It's about 3.
So it's over 9 years of contract.
5% each year.
No,
6 years.
2020 to 2025, that would be an average of 5,000 increase per dollars. Oh, were you talking percentages?
2026
I'm
is
sorry.
what you're,
So- Oh, sorry, June 30, 2020.
25.
So over a 6-year period.
3%.
Just under the teachers. Yep.
We always, I mean, that's always the goal is to stay under that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that a teacher in 6 years could, in, you know, with how it works out, that's substantial monetary wise.
But are you looking at
Think so.
dollars or are you looking at?
Well, because if you look
percentages?
at teachers in the last 5 years, if you look at the grid from, you go from 2018-19 school year, the bottom right side, salary, this is not with, longevity pay included. And you go and you, go all the way through the 2022-2023 salary, same bottom right salary grid. It is a 9.64% salary increase.
So you're just isolating one grid, one perspective on the grid?
No, well, that's taking into account the 2018, 2019, all the way through the 22 to 23.
What do you mean when you're saying?
So if you're the bottom right person, you're the farthest, the highest paid.
Yeah.
In 2018, 19, 19, 20, 2021, all the way up to 22, 23, your increase in salary is 9.64% over that same time span, where
Plus you said
that's
longevity,
not including the longevity pay.
but the longevity pay is part of the salary.
Yeah, well, I have not had time to include that in and get those numbers and figure out if that percentage matches up or not.
And through negotiations, that is the salary added to the bottom of the grid for those individuals.
And again, I have not had time to look at that, so I can.
But what are
Work
you
those
looking to
numbers.
compare?
It just seems like, you know, if we're worried about our fund balance and we're trying to get to our goal, the numbers just seem really high, and that plays more into fact when you look at the performance-based incentive pay based on that percentage. So I just wanted to make that clear, so then when we go in and have a discussion about performance-based incentive pay, it'll make more sense as to what I'm trying to say.
So what's a 3% in the bottom right compared to a 3% in the bottom left?
I
Or
don't
the
have,
top left?
I don't have time,
Well, we
I
know
have
what
not
it
had
is.
time to
So
do
if you're
that.
making 10,000 here, or let's say you're making 40,000 here, and you're making 80,000 here, and they both get 3%, which one's moving the furthest?
Right,
So the same is true when you go from here to here, and then you get your principals, and then you get your superintendent. So the larger your salary increase is, or the larger your salary is, when you get a percentage increase, the larger that percentage is. So, I mean,
well, and they're also not getting incentive pay.
if you were on the far right side of the scale and say you were MA 20, what would that person, if they got a step every year, if they were in step 4 and they went all the way to step 10, what percent increase would that be?
I'd have to have time to do that math.
You didn't need my contract to do that.
I mean, but that's what you're comparing against, because
Yes.
Mark's been stepping down each year.
Yeah.
He would be
Well,
moving
so
this
Byron's
direction.
contract from 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023,
How
all the
many
way
do
through 24
superintendents?
is 4% increase.
And how many do
Over
superintendents
that time.
have at the same time frame?
That's stuff that I have
There's
not been able to
variables.
look at, yeah.
There's
It would
variables
have
outside
just,
of that.
that's information that would have been nice to be able to,
Do you have a copy of that grid? Because I'd love to see what
I don't have one on me,
a
no.
step 4,
So,
MA 20 to step 10, MA 20 would be over the 6 years, because I bet that would be a really, really big number. Because we had, people in the steps were getting anywhere from 8 to 14% raises every year. So it's hard to compare the bottom right to the rest of the staff, because if they're only getting 3% in that bottom right, but yet as a staff, they're getting an 8% or 7.9 or 7.8% increase. If somebody's getting 3, the average is 8, somebody's getting a really big number, right? So some of those people in other places are moving really fast, but once you get to that bottom right, outside of longevity pay, it's tough. Unless you add steps.
And that's
So which
fair.
we've done 3 times, but when you add those
That's
steps at the end and subtract them at the beginning, of course, you get that starting salary up, which you like to do.
And that's fair.
And those people that are in the bottom right, they get 2 more steps.
Yep.
But the people in the middle sit there and say, well, we didn't move a step.
Yep.
We didn't go anywhere. So you, I mean,
Always part
it's,
of negotiation.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, so maybe it's
that's why
more,
it's hard to say people in the bottom right only got this.
and it might be more fair than to compare it to a district like Byron, who's seeing a 4% increase in 3 years.
But it's not if they've had how many new superintendents versus a new superintendent.
Well, there's a big difference between 4 and 12.
I have a question. How, if we have all the numbers from the other districts, how established is matching the teacher increase? Because you made a good point, like the more you make, the more that actual increase is. So we just go up percentages, is that similar in all comparable districts that they compare to the teacher increase?
Stewie in the last, I think I have it here. Let me show you. Stewartville in the last salary from 22-23 to 23-24, the raise was $10,000 that year.
And what are they making now?
171.6 this year with 5 years experience. So everybody's got different. Pine Island
Is
is going
Stewart,
up 7,000.
they make 1,000 more per pupil more than us too, right?
Their revenues
Their revenues are 1,000 more
are
per.
$1,000. Well, because they've got an operating rate. And remember, everybody's different in different places too. Sometimes you're not going to take the money in the salary, you're gonna take the money in the 403B, so it all depends on how that last
Yeah, these all have
negotiation
different
cycle went.
And no, and I completely understand that. I just, as a taxpayer, if you're just sit down and, that 19.872 increase in 6 years seems like that to me would have me wanting to know more information and looking more into it. It just seems high, especially with where we are at as a district, lowering enrollment and things like that. But really,
But Amy, a 3% increase annual and stuff, would you consider that extravagant?
it's more than
3.2?
It's more than a lot of people have gotten. Yeah,
But it's not higher than our staff has got.
But I think she's saying in amounts it is.
Right, no,
right, and I get that. What I'm just saying is, we were just talking about how, we need to be very fiscally responsible, and I'm not saying we're not, but I just think if the public does want to make sure we're spending our money appropriately, and we need to be able to speak to it. And if we're saying we can't find any money for X, Y, or Z, and then we're showing numbers that more than the general population might be getting, that's concerning. Especially, so if you take into account, and this is from a few different sources, if you take like cost of living increases, on the high end, on average, like for that same period of time, you would expect to see, 2 to 3% a year just to keep up with that cost of living. And so what we're doing here is we are exceeding, really exceeding that cost of living over that same time period. And then that's not even including that incentive pay. So that's a lot to think about as somebody who, you're watching every dime that you have. And as a district, we're trying to watch every dime that we have.
So what I'm hearing you say is, 2 to 3% of everything is appropriate for the cost of living. But when you average out this contract over the 6-year period, the percentage increase in stuff is sitting right around 3%. Maybe 3.1, 3.2.
No, 15% versus the 19.872%, we're above that.
But that was the one box you're comparing.
No, this is just for your salary.
She just picked the numbers. That's no cost of living.
I have a question too. In the future, like if our enrollment's going down, how do we adjust this, if we've set this precedent
The
that,
right size of staff.
But not salaries.
Not their salaries, this number.
but do we ever consider, well, I mean, we'd have to consider less percent increases. Like with our future, was that considered when we are establishing these percentages?
We're always trying to project what the numbers are gonna look like, right?
You'll get a chance to experience that during negotiations this year, Kate.
Yeah.
Get a chance.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that was beneficial also is when we had the audit report come through, I mean, that was before we were actually school board members, but in the meetings leading up, to, I think it was an October meeting, the auditor came through and then gave a really nice presentation and compared a lot of our, I'll say, buckets of expenditures to the state average as well as like-sized districts. And when you look at our administrative costs, we were significantly below state and like-sized districts.
My discussion, I'm fine with what we've discussed.
Okay. Any other questions on the base salary? Okay, then, section 2 is performance-based. So again, like I said, each year we set, as a board, set incentives for Superintendent Patuska. And specific projects and areas of focus that we'd like him to focus on. And show that that's critical for us in the fact that we put 10% of his performance-based incentives, 10% of the salary. And
Kent, maybe Mark too, do you want to explain a little bit when Mark first started on why that came to be? Like I don't believe that there's too many other superintendents around that have any sort of incentive-based,
Byron used
performance-based pay.
to, I don't know if Dr. Newbeck has one now, performance-based. There's a few up in the cities, there's a few down in the southwest, but some are probably up to about 15%, there's some as low as, with a straight dollar figure. So there's a lot of different varieties of the districts that do have a performance-based pay. That was a high priority for this district when I got here, to have a performance package in there that was to get into something above and beyond the original expectations of what the superintendent's position would be.
I am worried about that MSBA recommends that we use a number, not a percentage.
I wondered about that too.
Because with that percentage, that 10% from the last two contracts by the end of the one that we're discussing tonight, that's $101,000 in incentive pay. That's not really identified well to the public. So just for this new contract, it's $53,000 in incentive pay.
If earned.
If you've not earned it.
Yep.
What are some examples of what these measures of success, strategic examples? Like
One was a $39 million bond.
what are some others?
Insurance,
What's the insurance one?
I'd have to go back and take a look. I'll send them to you.
50%?
I'll send them to you with my evaluations.
Okay.
Which the middle school district will need to.
Was that one?
Yeah, they didn't let me work on it.
But I imagine it's.
I think
they're
the field, the baseball field, the softball fields, lighting on there. We've done stuff in the stadium, we did the track. I mean, all areas that we thought were special need areas.
Well, it also, Mark negotiated the settlement was a big issue.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and I absolutely agree with that one. I absolutely agree with that. That's a
Bob, do you
really big
remember the
number.
original offer from the insurance company?
What insurance are we talking about?
When we had a 2019 hailstorm?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think the original offer was
Right around $1 million. I
$1
think.
million, and what did we settle at?
was a little over three, I think.
300,000?
Million.
3 million.
Oh,
So hopefully that paid off the $100,000
We gained 2 million
in
dollars.
Oh, okay.
expenses that may have been incurred by the,
I'll check it out.
Again, that's why I don't like the percentage, and that's why MSB doesn't recommend a percentage, and they recommend an actual dollar amount.
Well, and that was brought up in the teachers.
Yep.
Too, because it's harder to budget
And maintain.
with a percentage.
I think the next time we negotiate a superintendent's contract, then we should put just the dollar figure instead of the percent then. It would still be a smaller percentage. If you put the dollars in, it would be a smaller percentage than what you put, than what the teachers would actually settle at. So I think it's just how you choose to do it in the superintendent's contract. Whether you put dollars or percent, we just have to say what the teacher's contract percentage was as a whole.
When you were telling the other numbers for the other districts, was that the base, or was that the total package?
Which number are you talking?
When you, like we were talking about, like your base pay of 173,500, and you were talking about the base pay for Pine Island, was that their base pay, or was that their total package?
Tammy's at 182 next year and 189.
Base pay,
24
Okay.
or 25, not including any of the other
okay,
benefits. She's got 12,000 in her HSA with another 2498 full family plus 12,000 in her 403B.
I have another question.
And I think her district has 1,600 students.
Okay, good. I didn't want to interrupt you. So these, we determine them. So is there a number that gets you to 10%, or how is each initiative worth 2%? How is this established? Is it subjective? I know you come with ideas, but is it just based on a board meeting, or? Yeah. And so is the number always the same every year to gain 10%, or?
No. It's different every year. We as a board identify what areas of focus we want Superintendent Matuska to work on. And then we put a percentage based on how important we feel that, or how much work that is gonna be. Actually, it's more about how much work that it's gonna be.
And so are these, strategic objectives outside of the already established role? Like, aren't these just things that should?
A lot of times it's items that may be coming up over the next contracted year that, or we know for sure are gonna take above and beyond, the regular duties of, his role. And so, like, for instance, the insurance thing and stuff like that, that
1 year
wraps
representative
up a
leading
lot
up
of,
to the building.
but a lot of things that may, be a lot of time that may be above and beyond the regular duties.
But still like his responsibility, in essence.
I don't know, that is essentially directed that, this is a priority for the board, we'd like to see this, particular item get done.
Does that make sense?
Yes. It prioritizes items that we would like to see get done. I think it's hard with incentive pay, and no means do I think that, suggest changing the contract here, but I think in a consideration for the future, we should reevaluate it.
And these are things I know in one, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was one contracted year and stuff that you had multiple administrators starting at one time, multiple principals starting at one time, and essentially getting everybody up to speed and working through all of that as well.
what is this year's? I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, my computer died, and I think it's too hard to.
HVAC and the electrical, put together a plan for the next 8 to 10 years so that we know where we should be spending our money with the lighting project, because we can't use LTFM funds to to replace the lights unless they're on a maintenance plan, so we're spending, we'll be talking about this at the board coming up to our meeting pretty soon. And the other one was due to the fact that we've got less than 150 kids in first grade, less than 150 kids in kindergarten, and an anticipated 135 kids in kindergarten. How are we going to right size and make things, and we've already started that process so that we don't get on that roller coaster ride, and we're planning. So where are we saving some money? Where are we spending some more? I mean, we just got our snowplow bill, and that's not good, but there's some other places that maybe we can save some money, so it's budgeting for next year early.
And I remember now, sorry, I just didn't have it in front of me.
Any other questions or thoughts about performance-based incentives? Okay. Article 10 is other provisions outside activities. Talk a little bit about Superintendent Matuska's involvement outside, including representing us at the state level and region level.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it last board meeting. I mean, it does, not only benefits our district, but the whole districts that are in the same boat we are. Mark is an exceptional advocate for smaller districts that don't receive the same funding as some other districts, so we do appreciate that.
Along with, I'm interested, how many other superintendents have you mentored and mentored for? I don't have any idea.
Scott Hall, Southland, Joey Page from Byron, Dr. Newbeck from Byron, Wendy Shannon was my mentor from Byron. And then I've had 6 in the AASA cohort from 2 years ago, and I've got another 5 from the AASA cohort from this year.
14, 15.
With you.
Along with keeping a close eye on things like the Highway 57 project, and how is that gonna affect the school? Not just the school, but the community, how's the bike path leading up to it, how's safety there? And those, and going to those meetings, being present at those. There's a lot of things that I will say, when I started here, we had a previous superintendent that did not get involved in those things. It was beyond the school day, it was beyond the, it's outside the school. They weren't gonna have those conversations with the city or the county or the state on those things, including, bike paths and safe route to school.
Question again, I agree, but I think we're using this time more to instead of evaluating Mr. Matuska, than evaluating the contract. Do you know?
Oh, I see what you're, yeah. I'm just trying to say, what are these outside activities
For sure.
that we have expectations of? Okay. Back to indemnification and provision of counsel. Any questions there? Chapter 466, Minnesota State. Anything there from the legislative piece of that? Okay. How about dues? Anything there? What about that? Bob?
Yeah, I have a question. What are your dues like? Just out of curiosity.
Never say no. Carlin and Bob's. Yes.
So there's state and national too, similar to yours.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's NASA, it's NASA, MSBA, remember the district belongs to a lot of these as well.
That's the school board.
Yeah.
MREA, which is recognizing teachers here as well. Schools for Equity and Education is another group I belong to. We have been former members of the Rochester Chamber, currently not a member. We've been members of Greater Rochester area We're advocates for universities and colleges. We're still involved with that. I'm a member of the Lions Club, but I don't put the dues in there. Also a member of the Care and Share organization, past president. Other groups.
There's no dues for that though, is there?
No, just volunteer time.
That's impressive.
Anything else on dues? Okay, on to section 4, medical examination. We required, I think we started this year 1. Wasn't in. Want to make sure.
Have you done this every year? Not to put you on the spot, but just out of curiosity. Good for you. I guess you get older, it's harder to make it a priority.
They want me to come back and initiate, I just can't afford it yet.
I believe that.
I have the delay.
Okay, and then the final section there is the healthcare savings plan fund. And you'll see it, $6,000 for the next 2 years, and then $8,250 for 25-26. Any question about the healthcare savings plan? Okay. Anything else on the contract or that we have not discussed or gone through? I think it's again, great exercise to go through.
Oh, good.
the whole thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I just want to say in discussion, and just so you guys are clear, I want and approve Mark being the superintendent. I'm not approving the contract based on some of the things that make me uncomfortable, such as that 10% instead of a dollar amount, and just not having had the time to look at into some of the things so that I can feel comfortable with. So once the vote is done, I want you to be very clear, make it very clear that I am 100% in support of Mark being our superintendent and the work that he does, so.
So.
And you haven't taken a vote yet, I just included this in the
Yeah, I just
discussion.
wanted,
Are you abstaining or are you voting no?
Well, can I abstain if we've gone through it line by line?
I agree. I wrote down 5 proposed changes we went through. Adding the 260-day employee. The annual review, I think we should change the date since we're signing this. So the date limitation, I think, should be adjusted for it. 11 versus 12 paid holidays, add an additional language change, question adding liability insurance, and then percent versus number of performance pay.
If it's more appropriate to abstain, I can abstain. I just want to make sure that that's in.
I say you do you.
In the evaluation, everything comes up at the end of every contract year, which is June. And so that's the time that we end up, doing that full annual event.
Yes, but he had to submit it by March 30th. We have a date limitation in there. And
As
it's
far as a
April 3rd.
request,
Yeah,
um,
just for accuracy's sake.
I just know that we've always.
so
every year
you want to take the date out
Yeah, I mean,
and just allow.
well, we're
them
signing
anytime?
it April 3rd and there hasn't been, but you offered, so, yeah. I mean-
It's the board's decision whether we want to eval.
It's true, I just want us to have an accurate contract.
As a board member, like, it's our duty to evaluate the superintendent on a regular basis.
For sure.
Whether you request it or not.
Yeah, whether he requests it or not.
Do we do that?
Yeah.
It's been requested every
Yeah,
year.
just
Why
like
do we do
I-
that?
You've
That's
requested it every year. I review my staff, whether they request it or not. I mean, it's part of, our.
We got-
Isn't that a moot point in the
Yeah,
contract?
so why do we have it then?
But again, we're not negotiating right now, we're just,
Keep in mind that we usually have a mid-year evaluation as well, so there's no surprises for the superintendent in June. Because anything that you have for the superintendent shouldn't be waiting until June to let them know about it. It should be happening whenever you have an issue that you want to bring up, because those people that hang on to those, that's not doing a very good service to the district. If you're hanging on those till June, when you get something that you believe the superintendent should be working on prior to that.
I agree.
In kind of the way that I read the dates, it's talking about when he makes the request for a new contract at the eval. Because if you read the sentence, the statement right before it says, unless a subsequent contract is entered into accordance with Minnesota statute between January 1 and March 30th of the year at the request of the superintendent. I'm looking at the very front page. Is that what
Me
you're talking
too.
about?
I'm not following it all. At conclusion of its term, neither party shall have further claim against the other, and the school district's employment of the superintendent shall cease unless a subsequent contract is entered into accordance. So why wouldn't we just strike that if we do it annually regardless?
I think what he's saying is that it's more of a contract versus an evaluation.
Right. So if you haven't already done his contract by somewhere between January and March 30th,
Okay, maybe we could change some language to clarify. I do see what you're saying now. You would request like evaluation to why we haven't done the contract yet? Is that what you're saying?
I think there should be a period after request, and that last part be a statement on its own.
Uh,
I don't know, I guess that's just kind of the way that I'm reading that those dates refer to if you haven't already done his contract, the subsequent contract, the following contract for this one, that he has the, I don't know, maybe I'm not reading it correctly either, but
I think it's something, having gone through negotiations, you're always gonna find that contract language can always be changed, right? It's ongoing, it's never absolute or final. And so you'll read the teacher's master contract and you'll have language, and you'll get done, and you'll be like, this is still language that we need to address next time, right? It's an ongoing situation.
I mean, you look at the MOU. You sign an MOU that's got incorrect language in it. Because the dates are gone and we did not meet in some of those. We still got them in the MOU. We still signed it. We still approved it. Same thing with Zed. I mean, I was on the Zed board. We go through those contracts and nowhere near to this degree did we go through those contracts at Zed. I was involved in writing the first one, so I know what it looks like.
Yeah, I think I just
So
felt
it's
more
always can.
comfortable with the MOU because we had so many meetings around it and so many comparables available to us and so many public meetings comparing. So this just felt very sudden. And it was hard to do like when I get this, it seems like a draft to evaluate.
Okay. Anything else before we vote then? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of Superintendent Tuska's contract, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And abstentions.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
everybody, I appreciate the support.
Okay. We've got 4.4, the second reading and approval of the following list of policies.
I make a motion that we approve the second reading to approve revisions to the following school board policies, all those listed below with the exception of 610 field trips.
Thank you, Amy. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Patrick, any discussion on those?
I have a question. Conflict of interest, it went from 8,000 to 20,000 this fiscal year.
Yes, and I had brought that up at the last school board meeting, that, that was an MSBA directive.
Okay.
And MSBA has, not given me the exact reason or where that came from, but we're thinking it's from out of Minneapolis, and up out of the city, the metro.
Okay.
Where coaching could potentially, I don't know if there's, maybe a hockey team good enough to make that kind of money, but
Okay,
dance coaches don't make that money.
thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
I was glad to see the lodging increase, just because of the expense of everything increasing so much.
In the food.
Yeah, I think it's really hard on our coaches, our
Yes.
volunteers to, try to cover the, difference.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the listed school board policies with the exception of 610, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we are on to informational next regular school board meeting Monday, April 17th. The next special school board meeting is May 1st, and we have a special school board meeting rescheduled for October 2nd, 2023, that will get on the list. This is what we have there. Anything else before we adjourn? We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate. All in favor of adjournment? Say aye. You're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
We're happy.
Thank you.